Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name's Joey. This Saturday at UFC 264, Sean O'Malley takes on a late notice replacement in Kris Moutinho, who's stepping in for Luis Smoka in a fight that a lot of people are counting him out. And with MMA, I feel like, anybody can win, but I find it hard to believe that Sean O'Malley's somehow going to lose to a guy who's never fought in the UFC. He's 9-4 outside the UFC. He's been stopped on numerous occasions. He's been submitted on numerous occasions. And a lot of people are going to count Kris Moutinho out, myself included. But let me remind you, a lot of people counted Marlon Vera out as well against Sean O'Malley. And he went out there, kicked Sean O'Malley's legs off, and then ended up flash KOing him with ground and pound. He brutalized Sean O'Malley so badly that he had to be stretchered out of the octagon. That's how bad of a beating Marlon Vera put on Sean O'Malley. But Sean O'Malley has since returned. He fought Thomas Almeida, who is probably his best win so far. He beat Eddie Wineland, but Eddie Wineland was so far past his prime at that point. But Thomas Almeida is still a young guy. He's looked promising in the past. That was probably Sean O'Malley's best win. If somehow Kris Moutinho pulls off the victory at UFC 264, then Sean O'Malley's career is over. I think the persona that he has, where he's mentally undefeated, has already turned a lot of people off, myself included. He got destroyed by Marlon Vera, and his cult following, along with himself and his coaches, do not want to accept it and evolve after that fight. And if he loses to a guy basically coming off the couch on 7 days' notice, a guy who's never fought in the UFC, it's going to be career ending for him. I don't know how he bounces back after a loss like that. And we know anything can happen in MMA. And Sean O'Malley's not a ranked guy. And I shit on him a bit, for not having an opponent who was half decent or already in the UFC. I understand that some of these guys who may have volunteered to fight Sean O'Malley couldn't make 135. But my gripe was not really with Sean O'Malley. It was more or less with the UFC. I feel like they could have done better. You're telling me there's not one guy they could have found in the UFC who could have made weight and kept the fight on so we could at least have a semi-competitive fight? I don't believe that for 1 second. The UFC is babying Sean O'Malley along. Again, there's nothing wrong with the UFC doing that. And they're trying to build him up, let him get a spectacular KO on a Conor McGregor card where a lot of eyeballs will be. And I believe he will. Sean O'Malley has very fluid striking. He has great feints. And Kris Moutinho, I've never heard of him up until this week, but I went on YouTube, I searched him up, looked at a couple fights. He's not a great striker, and he's taken a lot of damage in his fights. He's been dropped multiple times. He's been TKO'd and KO'd multiple times. And these are guys who are not really UFC caliber. I think he's fought one guy who's now currently in the UFC. It's just not a guy that even really belongs in the UFC. Maybe if he was fighting CM Punk, maybe that'd be an option for him. But other than that, looking at his skill level, and again, some of these fights are from like 2019 that I looked at, he just plots forward and absorbs strikes. And he doesn't, his striking is not all that good. And I know he's going to come in here hungry. He knows if he gets a big win over Sean O'Malley, that will propel his career to massive heights, at least temporarily. He will be a fighter that will be remembered for derailing the Sean O'Malley hype train, which is crazy. I don't know how it wasn't derailed after the Marlon Vera fight. I mean, he was literally stretchered out of the cage by EMTs after Marlon Vera put his hands on him. That's how badly he lost in that fight. Again, Sean O'Malley, I cannot blame him. He wanted to stay on the card no matter what. So if the UFC, if this was the best they offered, he had to take it. And also, even though it's a very, very, very winnable fight, it comes with a lot of risk. Because if you lose to this guy, again, where does your career go from there? And I know that's not very likely. But in MMA, we've seen crazier things happen. Look at Bisping coming in after losing to Rockhold a year before and being dominated. He comes in on short notice and brutally KOs Rockhold. Anything can happen in MMA. And if Sean O'Malley somehow gets finished, I find it very, very unlikely. His career is basically over. His cult following will still probably ride him to the end and say, oh, he's still undefeated. He took this fight on short notice. Just like they refused to accept that Marlon Vera beat him and beat him soundly, kicked his legs off and then brutalized him on the ground with ground and pound. Uh, Again, stretchered out of the cage on that fight night. So if Kris Moutinho beats him, maybe his call will be in denial on that one too. His coaches were in denial as far as the Marlon Vera fight. They went on a podcast afterwards and said, "Yeah, it sucks. The better fighter doesn't always win," and blah blah blah. And if there are guys who are unwilling to accept losses, then how can they evolve and change to make the necessary corrections to win future fights against quality guys? And I'm a guy who I've seen Sean O'Malley talk so much shit over the years. He's talking about Cody Garbrandt and Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, but yet he's talking all this shit, and his cult following is saying he's a future champ, but he's not even targeting any of these fights. And I know he necessarily doesn't belong fighting any of those guys, but he's got to be able to do better than Kris Moutinho. I mean, everybody is raising their hand to fight this guy. They all want to shut down this hype train. But this is the best that they can do, whether it's the UFC's doing or Sean O'Malley's doing. I just don't like it. And I think it ends up being riskier than, some of these other fights. Because if he went in and fought, let's say he fought Merab Dvalishvili, which I don't think Sean O'Malley will touch that fight with a 10-foot pole. But if he were to go in and lose that fight, people would say, okay, he took this fight on short notice against a quality guy. But if he somehow loses to Kris Moutinho, he's done for. And Kris Moutinho just moves forward. He just plots forward slowly. He doesn't have great striking. He takes a lot of damage. His defensive striking ability is not very good at all. He's been hurt quite a bit. I've watched a couple of his fights on YouTube. Sean O'Malley should destroy this guy. Sean O'Malley has great kicks, great punches, great combinations, very good feints. I don't know how that will go against elite of the elite at bantamweight, but against a guy who looks like he works at Hot Topic, I think it'll probably be all right and get him the win. I think Sean O'Malley probably gets a first-round KO in this fight or a first-round TKO. Kris has been finished multiple times before outside the UFC. I'm sure a guy of Sean O'Malley's caliber, even though he's not ranked, he does belong in the UFC. I think he should be able to get the job done. But I just wish we got a higher skilled fighter against O'Malley. I really wanted to see his skills tested. His best win is against Thomas Almeida. I just want to see him against a quality guy. And there's so many quality guys at bantamweight, even outside the top 15. I feel like there's so many guys to choose from. And the UFC, for whatever reason, couldn't make it happen. Sean O'Malley, for whatever reason, couldn't make it happen. But he'll continue to talk. He'll brutally KO this guy, Kris Moutinho, and then he'll talk and talk and talk. His cult following will be saying, "Oh, Peter Yan, he's coming for you. He's coming for you." I don't think Sean O'Malley would do very well in the top 10. I think maybe he could get around that, 10, 11 spot, somewhere around there. Maybe he could compete with the guys from 10 on out to 15. But inside that top 10, bantamweight is full of killers. Peter Yan would absolutely wreck him. Aljamain Sterling would absolutely wreck him. Bantamweight division is absolutely filthy, and we'll see, because I still need more to be able to analyze Sean O'Malley. And I got a lot of hate in my last video just because I said, he's unproven. You can't say he's proven just because he's beaten guys like Eddie Wineland, who was far past his prime, and Thomas Almeida, who looked good, but again, he never really proved himself either. He was brutally KO'd by Cody Garbrandt, a long time ago, like 5 years ago. And, he had a long layoff and coming back and fighting O'Malley. But we'll see. UFC 264 is this Saturday. Sean O'Malley puts his career on the line against Kris Moutinho. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. I know there will be a lot of haters on this video. If you're part of Sean O'Malley's cult, I welcome you to comment down below and let me know what you think. I know you're going to say I'm crazy and all types of stuff. But make sure you like the video. Make sure you dislike the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.